Hello, welcome to our webinar, Discover Streamlined Workflows with ArcGIS Field Maps. My name is Scott Ward. My colleagues Linda Peters, Kate Hess, and Matt Woodleaf will be your hosts today. First, I'd like to cover some administrative details. You can ask questions through the questions module, and we will answer those at the end. The recording for this webinar will be posted early next week if you'd like to review it in the future. With that, we'll get started, and I'll hand this off to Linda.
Thanks, Scott. Welcome, everyone. Really pleased to have you all here today. We're going to turn cameras off now just to save on bandwidth, but we'll be back with you face-to-face in the end. So questions at the end, certainly think about what we're talking about as we go through the slides here today, and we'll be ready to take those. Today, we're going to explore how you can use GIS in the field. We'll take a quick look at some of the many ways we see GIS being used, and then I'm going to invite Matthew and Kate to show you some examples. And again, we'll open it up at the end for questions. Before we get into field maps, I want to take a minute to talk about ArcGIS because it always starts with the ArcGIS platform. And many of you know already that ArcGIS is a comprehensive platform. It's open, it's services-based, it's distributable, and extendable. And it supports not only large organizations or teams, but individuals as well. And it really provides us a smarter way to work in the field. It's no secret today that so many organizations are capturing data to support their missions. Oftentimes, capturing data in the field is the backbone of an organization's success. That's why I want to start today by talking about modernization. Modernization in the context of mobile solutions can mean transitioning from pen and paper to a more streamlined digital workflow. It could also mean transitioning, though, from some legacy digital capture devices, maybe even ArcPad, right? But we need to move to leaner, faster applications and solutions. In either case, whether you're moving from pencil and paper or another type of device, modernization will provide you with a lot of different benefits. It allows for efficient and accurate data capture, reducing the amount of time you spend in the field. It's cost effective as you're not having to duplicate efforts by entering data down twice, writing it in the field and then having to recode it back in the office. It streamlines data management. It helps you reduce the time and effort you're spending on QA, QC. And it helps us to monitor the status of ongoing projects in real or near real time by leveraging ArcGIS dashboards. ArcGIS, as I said, is at the core and really brings everything together, ensuring that both field and office workers use the same authoritative data, allowing you to reduce errors and boosting your productivity. And field work, as we all know, tends to follow a set of phases, as you can see here, starting in the planning phase, helping us navigate to where we need to be, understanding our surroundings, doing the actual data capture, whatever that might be, whether that's tabular data, map data, perhaps a photo, and of course, monitoring the work and coordinating assignments. Now, in the past, we might have used one of many different apps from Esri, but today we're going to talk about ArcGIS Field Maps. We took mapping and markup functionality from ArcGIS Explorer, the map-centric data collection from Collector, the optimized and secure tracking from Tracker, mobile tasking and coordination from Workforce, as well as navigation functionality from Navigator, and we put them all together. And today, not all features are included, but things like Navigator and Workforce will be coming soon. So we're going to focus today on the best of breed mapping system, data collection, and tracking technology. Now, why would you want to use field maps? There's really several key benefits that are important to highlight, as you can see here on screen. We can begin to use and deploy things once, one app to deploy and learn on our device. We sign into ArcGIS only once. we're eliminating the duplication of offline content on the device and creating a smaller aggregate app footprint or app download on the device. And of course, all this helping us with consistency across the apps. And there are 5 key capabilities, as I mentioned already: map viewing, map markup, data collection, asset inspection, and location tracking. Now, why are we doing this? Why is this important to Esri? We really felt that we needed to create a full-featured mobile app, one that would allow you to do all these key functions and viewing and marking your maps, capturing data, recording and sharing your tracks, and to simplify that and make the back office web app simpler to use, allowing you to configure and deploy your maps and manage your offline content and create and edit smart forms. So with that, I want to throw it over to my colleague, Matt Woodleaf, to give us a walkthrough and start to talk to us about field maps and give us a little demo. Matt, I'm going to pass it over to you.
So before we get into it, I want to point out some of the things for you to be on the lookout for in the demo, mainly the 5 key capabilities that Linda already talked about. Be on the lookout for viewing and exploring read-only maps, sketching, creating markups, and sharing your drawings, capturing data with smart forms, leveraging conditional attribution to streamline asset inspection, and tracking your mobile team in real time with embedded ArcGIS tracker functionality. Our scenario focuses around maintenance in Grand Teton National Park. We'll go through 2 workflows. One where you can use field maps as your personal field journal to collect markups and jot notes important to you, and a more formal asset inspection workflow to add damaged signs to the maintenance queue. Let's get into it. You can sign in and use field maps with ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. But what if you just want to jot a few notes and not make any updates? Without signing in, I can still use the app to collect information that will be saved on my device. This way, my notes do not become part of the organization's authoritative data sets, and I can use the app as my field journal. Field Maps behaves like many mapping applications with all the panning and pinching and zooming, gesturing that you're familiar with. Tapping a point brings up some additional attribution and some additional functionality like wayfinding. Right now, you can choose your favorite navigation app. In the future, you can use ArcGIS Navigator for custom routing. Let's use the bookmarks function to go to where we'll be working today. That's Phelps Lake. Before I even head out, I meet some hikers who let me know that they saw a broken trail marker near the JY Ranch gate. This is something that I'll need to keep an eye out for, but does not need to be part of my organization's spatial data. So I'll add a personal markup. Once the markup is added to the map, I can give it a label so I can easily add more markups. And add a note so I get reminded of why I'm reporting this. As I'm about to head out, my boss radioed me, and there have been a couple of bear sightings near Death Canyon. And I want to add a markup for that as well. Let's add a label about the bears. And a note for me to be extra cautious. So while these markups are saved on my device, they're shareable as well. So I can share my markups via text with my boss. So that way he can distribute it to other rangers. With read-only access, I've been able to explore maps, as well as create and share markups with my colleagues. Let's examine some additional functionality that are available by logging into ArcGIS Online. access is controlled through my identity, as well as additional device protections. With these two layers of security, only those with proper permissions can access my organization's data. Signing in gives me an additional option to turn on my tracks. This live updating layer will give my team greater situational awareness and give them breadcrumbs to my location should an emergency arise. A pretty good idea with bears roaming around. I only want this on during working hours. For this project, I need to hike the Phelps Lakes Loop and add items to the maintenance queue. Since my markups are stored on my device, they're added to any map that I open. Now that I'm signed in, I have additional layers that are only accessible and editable when I'm logged in. The overflow button is where I get most of my map functionality, such as base maps. I want to adjust my base map to the USGS so I can see my trails. One of the layers I have access to now are incidental observations used for collecting wildlife sightings. Another ranger has inadvertently added the bear sightings as wolves. So by using Edit Multiple, I can quickly select the features in question and make a change to the attribution. This tool is very handy for changing attribution across multiple features. Back at the trailhead, I see this is going to be a long day. The first sign has been graffitied, so let's add that to the maintenance queue. Adding the point on the map brings up a smart form, which makes data entry a little bit smoother. Notice the default value in Observer. This was configured by the data owner, but I can change it to myself. There are only two other fields, but smart forms allow for conditional values, which declutters the screen and only shows required attribution for the circumstances. So by changing the sign condition to damaged, the form brings up additional required fields, each with their own list of attributes. The smart forms in the Field Maps mobile app streamline the process of data capture out in the field, so you can be more efficient. Let's recap what we just saw by going back to the slides. We just saw how ArcGIS Field Maps enables read-only map viewing, sketching and sharing markups, tracking, and data capture with map-centric interfaces. But how do we build all this stuff? Well, let's move on to the next major component of the ArcGIS Field Maps, the web application. The Field Maps web app provides a one-stop shop, a browser-based web tool integrated with ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise. The app is where you configure how your forms behave on the mobile app. So let's take a look at how to get there and rig up a form. The Field Maps web app is accessed through the app launcher. The landing page is specific to your identity and what you have access to. Let's get into some configuration of my web map. The Overview tab is where I can find and edit my item details and find out if my map is available for offline use. It looks like my map is not, but we'll fix that in a later step. The Content tab controls how my layers appear in the map and how data is entered. Let's go into our paved trail condition and we'll create a form. The interface is pretty straightforward. I can drag and drop attributes to complete the form. Remember how the signs had conditional fields? So this is how we can make that happen. Since I want all of the questions to appear based on one condition, I'm going to create a group called Details. You can call it whatever you'd like. But now that this group is available, I can drag in the additional attributes to fit into that group. So we'll add priority, replacement, status of replacement, and date of replacement. All right, now to set the condition. For that, I can use an arcade expression. In the arcade builder, I just need to give this a descriptive name, and really I only need to add one line of code. That's it. That's the one line I need. But if you do not recall the domain values, this pencil icon lets you have a look at the domain values. So with that, our form is complete and it's time to save and move on. The offline tab is where I can activate my map for offline use. Additionally, it's always a good idea to check your content and make sure that your editable layers will be available for offline use as well. Looks like we're pretty good here. Map areas are an option specific to field maps. This lets us determine which areas will most likely need to be taken offline and configure those and package them ahead of time. I'm fairly confident that this Phelps Lake area will need to be taken offline, so I'm going to sketch the whole area and give it a descriptive name. And hit save. While this is packaging, I can actually close this window and it will continue to package behind the scenes. I had to make sure others in my organization can view this on their devices. So I'll hit up the sharing tab and change the sharing to organization level. There will be two more tabs coming soon, settings and preview. As their name suggests, there will be additional settings control and you will be able to preview how your map will look on several devices. Let's head back to the slides for a quick recap. So to conclude, ArcGIS Field Maps provide several key benefits that support modernization within your organization. It is a single application to deploy and learn, a single sign-on experience to start capturing data more quickly. It has a small footprint on your mobile devices. It provides consistency in how projects are deployed and data is captured. And it provides for a reduction in the duplication of content required for offline use. For example, you wouldn't need to create an offline area or load multiple map packages for use in ArcGIS Collector and ArcGIS Navigator to access the same area. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Scott for a poll question.
What areas would you be interested in learning more about in ArcGIS Field Maps? Please choose all that apply here.
All right, and now we're seeing the results. A lot of folks interested in data collection. That's great. Well, that's actually a good transition for us as well, because we've discussed the use of field maps for your map-based workflows. But what about when you need to just collect simple data with a few attributes and you don't want your field workers taking the time to fill out a multi-question form, for example? So next we're going to take a look at ArcGIS Quick Capture. This is an app that can be used for many different workflows, from census and survey, which I'm interested in, but also in areas of land administration, perhaps humanitarian response, emergency management, even defense. Think about any application where you quickly need to delineate an area, maybe capture landmarks, points of interest. So with that, I want to invite my colleague Kate Hass to talk to us about this great app and give us a demonstration. Kate, over to you.
Thanks, Linda. So Linda just mentioned a few use cases where you want to collect field observations at speed. For these projects, we have Quick Capture, a rapid data collection app with a big button user interface. Using Quick Capture, you can record a field worker's location, an image, paradata from the device, such as the date and time, and other characteristics of the location in the background with one click of a button. These locations can be points, lines, or polygons, and Quick Capture allows field workers to collect data quickly, even from within a moving vehicle. I'm going to demonstrate one use case for Quick Capture, focusing on a common statistics workflow. In this scenario, I've been hired by the Census Department to delineate enumeration areas in the field. This is a common workflow in countries or areas where they don't have robust base maps. So before they begin the census, they need to divide up countries or districts into smaller areas so that the Census Department can efficiently deploy its enumerators to conduct the building and population surveys. While this example is centering on statistics, a similar workflow of delineating areas with ground directions can be useful in many industries, such as for humanitarian groups landing in a new area and needing to determine where to send resources, or for a land administration office capturing parcel boundaries, or even in public safety and disaster response settings, where you need to know where to send help or supplies. And as I mentioned before, one major benefit of Quick Capture is that it cuts down training time for your field workers. So I'm going to switch over to the mobile app and show it to you before I go any further with the overview. When I go out into the field and open the Quick Capture app on my tablet, I can see the projects available on my device. And I'll open the Create Enumeration Areas project to start collecting. First, I'm prompted to enter my name, which will be associated with all the enumeration areas I delineate in the field. And it's remembered my last response to autofill. I'm going to click Start Collecting as I begin to drive the perimeter of my enumeration area. When I pass through an intersection, I'll press a button to record that I'm passing an intersection but going straight. And I don't need to slow down on my route as the point is submitted. When I come to a turn, I'll press the right turn button, and it will record the direction that I'm turning. This point will be added to the map along with attributes indicating my current latitude and longitude, my username, the date and time, and other attributes about the GPS accuracy collected in the background. When I come to a landmark, I'm going to point my device at the landmark, and it's going to capture a photo in the background. I'll enter a description of the point of interest, which in this case is a plant in my office, and then I can end the enumeration area. Here I'll also be prompted to enter an enumeration area number, and these fields can be prompting for text, or I could prompt the enumerator to select an item from a drop-down list. As you can see, after 30 seconds, each point or the polygon that I've collected are being sent, and the symbology is being inherited from the layer that they're being added to. An important feature of Quick Capture is that I can view the map where I've been submitting data, so I can ensure that I'm not collecting an enumeration area or a point that another field worker has already visited. The data I'm collecting is submitted in near real time as I drive the enumeration area. So if I'm a supervisor monitoring the delineation progress, I can see how many enumeration areas have been visited. When I refresh this dashboard, I'll see the new enumeration area has been added, inheriting the symbology, and I can review the points that I've added. So here, I can see all of the information and the paradata that's been collected in the background, and I can see the image that I took as I was collecting. So now that you've seen how Quick Capture functions for the field worker and how I was able to start collecting data with very little training, I'll dive further into how this project was configured and some of the additional functionality that's available. I configured this EA delineation project using the Quick Capture Designer. The Designer is a no-code drag-and-drop interface accessed from your web browser, which lets you create Quick Capture projects from your existing feature layers and configure your big button user interface's appearance and the data sources for each attribute. Now I'll show how to configure a project using the Quick Capture Designer. The projects in the Quick Capture Designer are created from existing feature services. So if I go into the project settings, I can see the layer that I used to generate this project. These two layers determine which fields I'll be collecting data for, and this is where my points and polygons will ultimately be stored. When I select one of the buttons in the project, I can make edits to the appearance in this first tab. So I could change the text size or the size of the button and add a fill color until I get the appearance that I'm looking for this app. In the Data tab, I can set the target layer where points collected with this button will be stored. I can point different buttons to different feature layers. For example, if I wanted to save the landmark points to a different feature service than the direction points. Here I can also enable taking a photo. And I could use the capability like I showed with the landmark, where I'm going to hide the camera preview. This is helpful when you have the device mounted to a dashboard or you're moving quickly, so you don't want to take the time to set up an image. You just want to capture an image automatically in the background when the button is pressed. Finally, I can configure the fields that are going to be collected when I press each of the buttons. There are 4 different types of ways that we can fill in these fields. So for the speed field in my feature service, I'm going to select device variable. Now I can select from over 40 different device variables or paradata that's being collected in the background. In this case, I'm selecting the speed in kilometers per hour. When I scroll past the rest of the paradata that I'm collecting, I get to the record action field. In this case, I'm going to be using a coded value for this field. So I'm selecting left turn from the drop-down list of different directions. Every time the left turn button is pressed, the record action field will be filled with a left turn attribute. When I go to my start end enumeration area button, I can see the 2 other types of fields. First is the button user input, and this is what I showed when I pressed the end enumeration area. I was prompted to enter a number. In this case, I made it a required user input, but you can also make this optional if you want to give the enumerator or your field worker the option to add notes. And finally, for the enumerator name, I'm using the project user input. So this is when I input my name when I first opened the project, and I can save that entry to all of the buttons that I'm collecting within this project. Now, when I'm done configuring my project, I can save it. And when I go back to the app on my mobile device and refresh, I'll see there's a project update available. And with one click, I can update my project. And then when I open it, I'll be able to see the changes to the appearance of the Quick Capture project. So today, you've seen Quick Capture's simple button-based interface, which is especially important when you have many field workers to manage or you need to get out into the field quickly. The app increases the efficiency of field operations, saving your organization time and money. Now, before I pass it back, I want to highlight one more feature of Quick Capture, which is oriented imagery. With oriented imagery enabled, you can take photos in the Quick Capture app as usual, but more background information is collected so that you can see on a map the geo-referenced field of view for the image. In this GIF, you can see how the map highlights what is visible in the image and updates as you pan and zoom. There are many potential applications for this feature, with some listed here. For example, if you're conducting a damage assessment and take a picture of a building from the road, the oriented imagery will more clearly tie your observation to the correct building, and it can be validated with satellite imagery. Now with that, I'll pass it back to Scott for another poll question.
Thank you, Kate. What are your plans for field data collection? Please select one. And here's the results. Back to you, Linda.
Maybe just start to talk about some of the challenges that we see, because we do see many challenges overall in national government, from expanding stakeholder expectations to escalating demand for more information. Delivering information now and near real time is so critical. And of course, the increasing demand for better resolution, right? Higher quality data. And of course, we're being asked to do all of this today with smaller budgets, less staff. Oftentimes, of course, we have all the issues dealing with people working remote these days, as well as the shrinking timelines that we're faced with. So a lot of challenges for us to get our work done efficiently today. And I think what you've seen as we've demonstrated here today, field maps really provides a lot of different benefits to us. Matthew underscored some of those benefits, but it really helps us become more responsive, speeding the time that we're able to get information into decision makers' hands. We're expanding our use of technology and of course, saving time and money while we're doing it. And, not to overlook the improvements in accuracy of the data that we're collecting. So a lot of good things coming out of using some of these new applications out in the field. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. We're going to get ready to throw it open for some questions here, but we want to leave you with a few resources here on screen. And of course, again, we'll make the recording of this available and the slides available post-session. All of these have links as well, so you can go out and find the resources yourself. But we hope that this has been a beneficial demonstration for you. And with that, I want to throw it back over to Scott and open it up for our Q&A session.
Thank you, Linda. Our first question is, will you be adding the customization ability of Survey 123? Kate, can you answer that?
Sure. So we're maintaining Survey 123 as a separate app from Field Maps. So for more complex survey functionality, you're going to still want to use Survey 123 for those use cases.
Thank you, Kate. Next question, you said it worked with online and enterprise. How about pro? Matt?
Yeah, so it will work with, it's a separate application than ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS Pro is a desktop application and Field Maps is a mobile app. They will work concurrently, they will work together, but they don't replace each other.
Thank you, Matt. Can we convert existing surveys into Field Maps forms? Kate?
So you can't import from Survey 123 to Field Maps, but you can easily transition any forms you have in Collector to start using in Field Maps.
Thank you, Kate. What data sets can be integrated, i.e. the items you showed in the right column to drag and drop into the form? Where could those be pulled from? A SharePoint list, for example? Matt?
Adding those from a SharePoint list would take some additional configuration, maybe perhaps through a WebSocket. But really, all those attributes are being pulled from feature services. So however you have your feature service configured will be a list of attributes that you can pull into the form.
All right, we put a lot of effort to build a Microsoft Power App as integrated with a key SharePoint list. But what was demonstrated would definitely be much more useful in the field because of the mapping functions. If the form can integrate with SharePoint lists as the data repository, then big thumbs up. Just to further that point you just made, Matt. Another question, is there a path for migrating existing Collector and Survey 123 forms? Kate?
Yeah, so I think I just addressed that. There's not a process for transitioning from Survey 123 to Field Maps, but if you're transitioning from Collector to Field Maps, you'll be able to connect to the same underlying feature services that you're collecting into using Collector, and easily just switch to collecting information into those feature services and maps in Field Maps.
Excellent, Kate, thank you. Do we know when Field Maps will be available for Windows, tablet, or devices? Matt, could you answer that one?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So we've actually gotten this one a few times from the development team as well. Currently, we're not planning on developing Field Maps for Windows devices. Windows is projected to reduce its support. So we're now focusing on developing for iOS and Android. And a lot of the new mobile Windows devices will run on an Android platform.
Thank you very much, Matt. Next question, using quick capture while driving goes against federal policy for operating a motorized vehicle. Linda?
Yeah, sure. We don't want to break any laws, that's for sure. I think the guidance there obviously is follow whatever your local, federal, or state laws are, but we see a lot of a team of two out in the field, right, where you have someone driving and someone else perhaps who's in a passenger seat, a worker who can then use the quick capture device and be capturing while someone else is driving. But yeah, let's not break any laws.
Thank you, Linda. Will Field Maps have integration with workflow managers like Survey 123 has, Integromat and Microsoft Flow/Power? Matt?
Yeah, Field Maps is slated to have those integrations. It will also be integrated with Workforce, the ArcGIS Workforce in further releases. So you should see all the configurations being transferred over to Field Maps. So that means the real-time alerting in the field, being able to send messages to your mobile workers, et cetera.
Thank you, Matt. Will Field Maps replace Collector, and I guess by extension the other ones that it's currently integrating? Kate?
Yes, Field Maps is going to replace Collector and the other apps that are being rolled up into Field Maps.
Thank you, Kate. Is there an easy migration process for web maps used in Collector to Field Maps? Matt?
Yeah, so what's great about it being all in the Esri ecosystem is that your current field maps are already available for Field Maps. So if you have web maps that are already built that you're using in Collector, those are already set up, and you should be able to connect to them in the Field Maps web-based application.
Kind of a follow-up on that, it seems that can they share crossover feature services and web maps as well?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you,
Although
Matt.
I would recommend switching your workflow from the Collector. So as we've kind of mentioned a few times, Field Maps is meant to replace Collector, Explorer, Workforce, and I think one of the other ones I can't remember now, but it's meant to replace 5 different apps. So with that one single sign-on experience. So Field Maps will be a much more streamlined, user-friendly application rather than having to open 5 different apps and sign in 5 different times.
All right, thank you, Matt. So could a feature service created by Survey123 Connect be used as a data source? Kate?
Yes, if you've used Survey123 Connect, so your survey is pointing into a feature service, that same feature service could be added to a map, and then you could go out using Field Maps and collect data back into that same feature service.
Thank you very much, Kate. What's the timeline for replacing Collector? Did you happen to know that, Kate?
I'll throw that one to Matt.
Matt?
Yeah, sure. So like most of our new products, we'll still support Collector for the next few releases and probably some bug fixes and stuff. But Field Maps is available right now. So as far as the timeline for Field Maps replacing Collector, right now.
Excellent, Matt. Thank you. Will Field Maps app be free for download in iOS, Android devices? Matt, can you handle that one?
Yeah, it's definitely free for download. You can either hit it through Google Play or from the App Store in iOS devices. And as I showed, you don't even need to have an ArcGIS Online organization to start exploring how to use Field Maps.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. Can you enter field mode straight from the app on the mobile device, Kate?
Field mode.
Or sorry,
meaning...
offline mode. Offline mode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Thank you, Kate. There was that clarification further on down. Is there a migration path for Survey123 forms? Kate?
So Survey123 is not going away. Survey123 won't be integrated into Field Maps. It's being maintained as a separate app. So if you have workflows and surveys that you're happy with in Survey123, those can stay in Survey123.
All right. The follow-up to the question you just answered, Matt, let's flip the question around. When does Collector disappear or not be supported?
As far as I know, we have no hard stop date on supporting Collector.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. Are there any plans of creating a drag and drop form editor for Survey123 to connect similar to Survey123? Kate?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
So I do want to point out that if you do use the Survey123 web application, that's a drag and drop interface.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Is there a navigation app similar to Carry Map where you can create files with points and navigate to them in the field without cell service? Matt?
I'm not familiar with the Carry Maps application, but you would be able to add points from a feature service or a published shape file, something like that, or sideload the map onto your device and be able to use it in Field Maps.
Yeah, perhaps what we can do on that one is a follow-up with the user who's asking the question directly so we can understand it a little better.
Okay, certainly. I think going back over here, I think we're all good. How will Esri address the issues that field maps have trouble connecting to a Trimble R1 antenna to work offline on Android devices? Sounds a bit like another one of those ones you might want to take offline, but Matt, do you have a guess at that?
Yeah, that's a very specific question. So we'll take that. I'll take that one offline, and I will reach out to, if you want to make a note of who asked that question, Scott.
Will do. Yep.
I can ask the development team and see what they have to say.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Matt. I think we've gotten through all of our questions.
I see one other one, Scott. Sorry, there was a question about webinars, trainings, or discussions that cover the planning portions, sort of the wheel that we showed earlier.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, so we certainly do plan, to continue our series of webinars. There are additional ones coming up. I believe we have one for workforce plan. So again, to the user that's asked the question, we can get you information on that. But in general, I would tell people to watch the webinar series website because we will have, I think, another 5 or 6 webinars over the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw one other question I wanted to address. Someone asked, is Quick Capture a different app from Field Maps? And yes, so the 3 apps that are going to be maintained now are Field Maps, Quick Capture, and Survey 123. So those 3 are all going to stay as separate apps and won't be integrated together.
Well, thank everyone for your time. I appreciate you spending your hour here with us, and we'll get the video posted up along with the slides mid next week, and you can review them then again at that time. We'll also follow up with you on those key questions we had just a few moments ago, and appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you again sometime.